Have you ever wondered what really separates a decent class from a truly great one? You know, the kind that just clicks. Well, it's not magic, it's all about design. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you the hidden architecture behind an amazing learning experience. So let's start with the biggest challenge of them all, one that every single teacher faces. You've got a classroom full of students. Some are ready to absolutely fly, while others are, still figuring out how to build their wings. How on earth do you teach all of them at the same time? For a long time, the answer was basically this one-size-fits-all approach. And let's be honest, it's a model that just doesn't work that well. You either end up boring the students who are ahead, or you completely lose the ones who are struggling to keep up. The real goal is to create these personalized pathways where every single student gets just the right amount of challenge to stay hooked and, actually grow. So the big question is, how do you do it? Well, it all starts by thinking bigger, way bigger. We're not talking about just planning for today's lesson. We're talking about having a 2-year blueprint. A truly great class isn't just made up on the fly. It's built on a long-term, really strategic plan. And check this out. This is what that blueprint looks like in action. It's split into 2 really clear phases. Year 1 is all about one thing, building a rock-solid foundation. You focus on core skills, and this is so important, building up the confidence that really makes learning stick. Then, and only then, do you move into year 2, where the focus shifts completely to aiming for mastery, to refining those skills, and pushing students to become independent thinkers. And here's where it gets really cool, seeing how this strategy actually plays out in the classroom. In year 1, you're using high-interest, easy-to-get-into topics. The tasks are informal, more conversational. The whole goal is just to establish a strong base. But then, in year 2, everything gets dialed up. The content gets more complex, the tasks become more analytical. It's a very deliberate journey from building a base to getting students ready for some serious high-level success. Of course, even the most brilliant blueprint in the world is totally useless if you don't have the right building materials, right? And in education, that means having the right content, the articles, the videos, the problems that students are actually going to connect with. So, what makes for great content? It really boils down to these 4 key ideas. First, it's got to be authentic. We're talking real-world stuff. But it has to be adapted so it's accessible, not overwhelming. It absolutely has to be culturally relevant, reflecting the students' own lives and the diverse world around them. You also need variety to build flexible skills. And maybe the most important one of all, it has to be engaging. I mean, if the students don't care, the learning is just not going to happen. It's as simple as that. All right, so we've got our blueprint and we've got our tools. But now we're getting to the real heart of it all, the actual technique that makes this kind of personalization possible in a real classroom. This is the secret sauce. And that secret sauce has a name. It's called differentiation. Now, I know that word can sound a little intimidating, like you have to plan 30 different lessons, but that's not it at all. The key is right there in the definition. It's about providing flexible pathways to the same learning goal. Think of it like this. Everyone is climbing the same mountain, they're just taking slightly different routes to get to the top. Okay, let's make this super concrete. This is a perfect example of differentiation in action. See that first step? Everyone starts on the same page with a shared topic, healthy lifestyles. But then, the paths split. Some students get a simpler task. They'll read a short text and write a quick, informal email. At the exact same time, other students are digging into a way more complex task. They're analyzing public health policy and writing a formal essay. It's the same theme, but totally different levels of challenge. That, right there, is differentiation. Okay, so we've got a long-term blueprint, we have the right tools, and we have this incredibly powerful technique of differentiation. So what happens when you put it all together? Well, you create a system that really, truly makes learning stick. And the way this all comes together is this amazing concept called thematic spiraling. It sounds a little fancy, but the idea behind it is actually beautiful and simple. You just take a core theme, and you revisit it over and over again. But each time you come back to it, you go a little deeper, you dial up the complexity. Let's watch how this works with a theme like innovation. The very first time students see this topic, the goal is just a gentle introduction. They might read a simple article about a cool new invention and do a pretty informal writing task. This is all about building that initial comfort and familiarity with the idea. Then, maybe a few months down the road, innovation pops up again. But this time, the task is more demanding. They're not just learning what it is anymore. Now they're comparing different methods, writing a more structured piece. They're applying all the new skills they've built up in the time between these visits. And by the final visit, wow, they are operating on a completely different level. They're tackling that same theme of innovation, but now they're analyzing complex opinions and debating huge ethical questions like the future of AI. This is the absolute peak of the spiral. This is mastery. So you might be wondering, does this whole beautifully structured approach, does it actually work? Well, a case study from a school that put this exact model into practice found a pretty remarkable result, and it all comes down to this one number. That's right, an incredible 85% of students who learned this way ended up achieving top grades. So this isn't just some nice-sounding theory, it's a proven strategy for success. When you meet students where they are and you systematically build up the complexity, you get unbelievable results. And that brings us to a final, pretty big thought. We've just walked through the hidden architecture of a great English class. But what if this wasn't just about one subject? What if every single thing we learned was built on a thoughtful blueprint like this, using engaging tools and designed to spiral us all upwards toward mastery? Just imagine. What would that change? Something to think about.